One of those is that when we began in Bryan College Station, our local pro-life effort, it was triggered by Planned Parenthood opening an abortion facility in that town. And it's a very conservative town. A conservative university is there, Texas A&M. And when that abortion center opened, it was the first in the history of that community. And so our community was in an uproar. And we knew that we needed to respond to it. And a young lady named Lauren Donahue, who was a church secretary and recently graduated from college, she felt led to start a group which became what is today called the Coalition for Life. But when she started that group, she had absolutely no idea how are you effective at responding to the crisis of abortion in a local community. And she scoured the country trying to find where is an example that we can look to. And ultimately her search led her to the Pro-Life Action Ministries in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And so the entire organization that ultimately birthed 40 Days for Life was modeled after what many of you have been a part of year after year after year here in this community. And so I thank you, having seen what God has done in that town, I thank you so much, because you didn't even know, many of you who have been doing this for years, who have been faithful in doing good, you had no idea that it was spreading well beyond the boundaries of the Twin Cities to inspire people in other communities across the nation. Another one of the stories, I shared this last night at the TLC banquet. How many were at the TLC banquet last night? Okay, so I can repeat a couple stories. That's good. When we first started 40 Days for Life, and I'll share a little bit about that in a moment, but when we first started 40 Days for Life nationally, it was in the fall of 2007. And we had this big vision that maybe a dozen cities would join together for 40 days of prayer and fasting, 40 days of vigil outside of places where children are killed and women are wounded, and 40 days of grassroots outreach spreading the pro-life message. And we thought, wouldn't it be awesome if maybe a dozen, 15 on the high end? Could you imagine if 20 cities joined together to do this kind of crazy thing? And that first fall of that national campaign, we were just incredibly amazed as God stirred the hearts of people in 89 cities to join that first effort in 33 different states. And I remember one of the people I talked to leading into that fall campaign was Brian Gibson. And he said, we've got a whole bunch of things going. We're not going to be able to do the fall campaign, but we love the concept. We might do it at some point. So after we finished that fall 40 Days for Life, I get a phone call from Brian, and I have to tell you, I don't remember the exact number, but I've been to 25 plus states during that campaign, 60 some cities. It was a whirlwind. My family had just gotten in our minivan, and anywhere we could go, we went to go out and support a lot of those locations. And so I was wiped out. And we had thought, okay, we do this campaign, we pull out all the stops, and then we'll see where God leads. At the end of the campaign, we thought, at the most, we might do another campaign next fall. So my phone rings. I was actually in Ohio visiting some local pro-life groups there, and it was Brian. And Brian says, David, I think we're going to do a 40 Days for Life during the Lenten season. What a perfect time to pray and fast and to do this. And I said, well, Brian, I just don't think that's that good of an idea. We've had a few other people bring that idea up and doing another national campaign. But Lent is really early. That year in 2008, it was beginning the start of February into March. And I said it's going to be too cold in a lot of places. And frankly, we're just worn out. We're not ready for that. I mean, we have a whole staff of one at my organization. We office out of my bedroom. I just don't think we're ready for something like that. And Brian, in a very charitable way, said, well, that's great if you guys decide not to do it, but we're going to go ahead and do it. And I remember thinking, let's see, Minneapolis, St. Paul, February and March, people outside 24 hours a day, that's a little bit of a sacrifice. Now, I was at that point living in Virginia, but I was thinking about all my friends back in Texas in these warm climates, and I was feeling sorry for them. Oh, it might be kind of cold. And when Brian shared with me, and if I remember right, you had gotten a big tent, and you had a little heater or something. There was some kind of permit you'd gotten to just be able to keep people safe and warm out here. But I thought, if the people in Minneapolis, St. Paul are willing to go out and hold a 40-day vigil outside of an abortion facility in those hostile climate that you have here, then we have no excuse anywhere else. And that was then the launch of the second National 40 Days for Life, and it started building momentum from there.